I love your red hair, by the way. I mean, I'm totally biased, but I love it. I think it looks great.
I was just about to say I really love a redhead. So
Yeah. Yes.
This podcast is sponsored by nobody. I am paying for all of this myself. There is no sponsor, sorry. The following interview you're about to hear was recorded over Zoom. Enjoy!
Thank you so much for agreeing to be on this podcast. I'm really stoked to have you.
thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. So if you want, you can start just kind of by introducing yourself, talking about what you do, what you're about, living your best life, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'm Kaylin. I went by Katie growing up, obviously, for a really long time, but there are so many Katies. And so when I graduated high school, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go by my original name and not be confused with everyone anymore. So is all of this recorded? Can you edit it?
Oh yeah. I can totally edit whatever you want.
Okay, good, cool. So I smoked weed before we started so that I
Yes.
and so I just got like really sidetracked.
May I please leave that part in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's hilarious.
And so I've never done a podcast before. So I was like trying to get myself ready. So I was like, I need a lot of coffee and then I need to smoke and I'll be all the way evened out and it'll be great. But now I'm just it's not all the way balanced yet. So.
No, I love that. I think that's the best thing I've ever heard. I thought you were like nervous. And I was like, oh no, like, is she? No, so I'm glad you're just stoned. That's good.
Yeah.
I literally thought you were having like a nervous like moment there.
Oh God, no. I just like literally couldn't think of anything for a second. But anyway, okay, I digress. I'm Kaylin. I am currently a psych student at a private online university that I won't plug. I'm in the middle of trying to transfer to the U of A. So I work in ABA therapy, which is a branch of psychology, kind of. I work with a kiddo on the autism spectrum, and it's just kind of like coaching and teaching him how to speak and advocate for himself. And it's a little bit of a mix of occupational therapy as well. And I'm under watch of two people who have degrees and are far more qualified than I am. I also teach yoga. I specialize in prenatal yoga and breathwork and alignment is kind of where I fall. And I just recently started working at a bridal shop just for like a side hustle. So
how's that? I feel like everything else you're involved in is like peace, love, light, happiness. And I imagine the bridal shop is the complete opposite.
Yeah, I was like trying to find a side gig where I could just like make extra money right now. And so I applied at like coffee shops and stuff. And then I saw this bridal shop that's like a big chain. And I went in and interviewed for it. And they were like, actually, you can just be like a dress specialist if you want and style brides. I was like, okay, sure.
Oh, hell
I don't know
yeah.
if I'm qualified for that at all, but let's do it. Which is just kind of the story of all of my jobs. Like I swear every time I walk in, I'm like, I am not qualified for this.
Yes,
But
yes. Yeah, I once had an ex-boyfriend who told me I was a professional at getting jobs I was underqualified for.
Yes.
Because like I should not have gotten any of the jobs that I got while he and I were dating,
No,
but I did.
I mean, I like definitely don't have a degree yet. And I have worked in the psych field for the last like 7 years. And each time I get a job, I'm like, are you guys sure? Like, are you sure?
This should have been a lot harder for me to get. Do I want to work for
absolutely.
people that'll just hire me? Like,
yeah, but unfortunately, especially in Arkansas, our access to mental health resources is just so, I mean, it's awful. And so going into these jobs, they're so desperate that they're
yes.
like, well, you're interested and you have a little bit of experience. That's all we need, a high school diploma. it's heartbreaking, like how desperate they are. But it's been really great for me because those have been great stepping stones.
Yeah, yeah. It's great for responsible people. I feel like you and I, we're like responsible, we're gonna like show up and we're gonna do our best, right? We're gonna give it our all.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes I'll get hired by a job and then I'll be like, do I want to work for somebody who's gonna hire me for
And
this
the answer
role?
is almost always no. Like there's a reason, like some shady stuff's happening.
Yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. Man, but it sounds like you've got a lot of irons in the fire, kind of
I
all over the
do.
place.
I do. And so like I said, I just got my dog. He's precious, but he is a doodle. So it's like lots of training still.
And brilliant, so they know how to
Oh my
push all the
God.
buttons.
And he's just so precious and it kills me and I become weak. So that makes it really difficult for training. So I'm training him. And then, at work, I'm working on training with a child. And then I just moved in with a boyfriend for the first time in my life and I'm kind of training him. So I'm, like just trying
Yeah.
to keep myself going while also getting everyone else to like, I don't know, have some sort of rhythm and structure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like also that's kind of the new normal right now is I literally do not know anyone who has one job.
No,
Anyone.
I,
That
I don't
anyone under the age of 40.
Yeah, like if we weren't paying a mortgage right now and we were paying rent, I couldn't do it, even with two
Right.
jobs.
Right.
And they're like decent paying jobs, far over minimum wage.
Right.
And I don't have children and I
Right.
currently don't have any debt. So it's like how are people existing right now?
Like I know people who have college degrees and multiple children and cars and homes. And I'm just like, what? Like, what?
Well,
How?
Yeah,
How is
coming
this?
from where we grew up, like,
Yeah.
in Bentonville, which really is just like this cookie cutter, it's like the Truman Show. Like everything
Yes.
is so perfect and lovely, and everyone's just financially fine. And
They're
I'm
just
like,
existing.
how
Yeah.
in Bentonville, how are you living like that?
Yeah, I never in my entire life. So I spent quarantine in Bentonville. I stayed there for like over a
Oh
year.
yeah.
Yeah. And I could not figure out. I could not figure it out. I was applying for these jobs, right? And I was also looking at the cost of housing there. And how, like, I'm not that bad at math. Like, how are you? I never thought I would be priced out of my own hometown, but I
Oh my
literally
God.
could not afford to stay there. Like,
My parents are in this place where like, so they bought their house for like 95,000 back in 1997. So now their home has, over tripled in value.
yes.
But if they sell it and they move, they can't afford to buy another home in Bentonville.
Right. That's exactly how my
So-
parents are. They bought a house 5 years ago for, I think they paid something like $199,000 or $200,000. And it is now reaching $400,000 just in that amount of time. And it's the same problem. Like even if they were to sell their home, they couldn't afford to to move anywhere.
Right. You'd have to like go to one of the surrounding towns that are a lot less desirable.
Yeah. I never thought when I left Chicago that the prices would be the same in Bentonville.
That's wild.
I left a studio apartment
Like
in,
that.
yeah, I left a studio apartment in the middle of Chicago, Illinois, like in the city for $950 a month. And I moved to Bentonville and their studios started at 11.
I was going to say, you can't even find anything for that price here.
No. And I lived right next to Wrigley Field, which is like everybody wants to live there. There's like bars and stuff. Yeah. So I literally moved to Nashville, Tennessee because it was cheaper than living in my hometown.
I feel like everyone in Northwest Arkansas really needs to hear that.
Yes.
Because as much as we love it here, like there are other options. Like we don't have to live here because it's inexpensive, because it's no
longer inexpensive. It's not so that you think because the cost of living is low, you can go to Walmart and get cheap groceries. You can go to the Walmart gas station and get cheaper gas, you can whatever. But when your rent is $1,500 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment, that's not even on the square. It's not even on the square.
Oh.
And for anybody listening to this podcast who doesn't know what we're talking about small town Arkansas.
I mean, like my dad used to, he grew up there. So he used to walk from one side of town to the other, like with his friends just playing. And now the population is so large and it's so dense. And there's it's just so expensive. Like there's so much going on and we have so many people moving there every day. The
Yes.
Walmart headquarters has already had to kind of relocate because they outgrew themselves.
Yes. Yes.
So wild.
I remember growing up there, we lived in a duplex. It was 2 floors, 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath with a full garage, right? And it cost $650 a month.
That is mind blowing.
Mind blowing. I remember that because the first apartment I ever moved into by myself in Chicago was also $650 a month. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm living in a studio for the same amount as this giant place I grew up in. And now I'm willing to bet if I went back to that exact same duplex, it's like $1,500 a month.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's so crazy. And like, so my grandparents live like 2 blocks from the square, and their house is nothing special. It's old, but they have a largish backyard. They've been offered $800,000 so far.
I bet they could ask for more than that.
Oh, absolutely. My grandfather said he's waiting for a cool $1 million.
Yes. And you know what? He's going to get it by 2025.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your man's going to be a millionaire. Even if they just bulldoze the house and use the land,
when they
the
will,
man's
that's
going to be a millionaire.
what they'll do. Yeah.
Yep. He's going to be a millionaire.
Everything in Bentonville.
Yeah, like Gina Davis is going to come in and write him a check for his property and bulldoze the house and build something on top of it.
For sure.
Are you still in Bentonville or nearby?
I'm not. I'm just west of Fayetteville. So we're 3 miles away from the university.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it puts us really close to town, but far enough out that it wasn't as expensive to buy a home.
Yes.
So Fayetteville's a lot cheaper than Bentonville, but it's
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I never thought that would happen. It's also a lot more enjoyable, in my opinion. Like Bentonville has become very rigid, and it's got this weird, like, religious, rockabilly, like cottage core. I don't even know how it all goes together.
I feel like everyone our age there seems like they could be a youth pastor.
Oh my God, absolutely.
Is that like a good description?
Yes. And like, you know, a lot of the girls that I graduated with are like either married to youth pastors or like, you know, they lead mission trips and stuff. And I'm like, I definitely saw you puking in the bathroom, like from your loaded Sonic drink.
Yes. Yes. Like
how do we end up here?
Yeah, like people, they just forget. I don't know. That's one thing I loved about returning to my hometown was just like seeing how everybody was pretending to be. And I'm like, but I remember you.
It's so crazy to me. I'm like I've known you since I was 5. Like going to the 10-year reunion was mind blowing. This dude like walks up and stands next to me and looks down and like introduces himself. And I was like, I've known you since I was like 6 and I look exactly the same. Shut the fuck up. Like, don't act like you don't know who I am. We're Facebook friends.
Right. Yeah. Or what I love is the way that people choose to remember things. Like they'll say like, oh, I always had a crush on you. And you're like, really? So when I asked you to homecoming, why did you say no? Really? Because I remember that. You don't remember that because it didn't traumatize you. But I remember that. Like, really? You're just saying that because I know how to draw eyebrows on now. Like, that's why you're saying.
Well, and because you've like already dated all of the other girls from our graduating class, and
Yes.
I'm just the next one in line. So you're like, you know, actually, I really had a crush on you.
Yeah, because I know how to draw on eyebrows and I moved away. Now you're like, oh my God, like,
you're a different person. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, dating in Bentonville is not really like something that I would recommend.
Hit me with it. I want to hear these dating stories. I want to hear these. Hit me with it.
I online dated off and on for like 4 years. And before that, I was in a relationship with someone for 3.5 years that I had met on a dating app. So I feel like I am just like, I'm a professional online dater at this point.
You should literally write a manual, like a guide.
I really thought about it, but it gets to the point where it's like, am I going to be sued at some point for sharing like these stories that like these men are wild.
They're wild.
Like the audacity.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so like the craziest shit happens, and it's like I can't really tell anybody, like,
Right.
you know.
And have you ever experienced when you tell your partner about something you went through, they're like, no, no way. No way.
I was
No.
just yeah, I was just telling Cameron last night about the podcast, and I was telling him about the story that you read aloud previously, but I like really went into detail, and he was like, what? So I'll go ahead and share with you in greater detail.
Yes. Oh, I love this tea.
So, okay, I had just gotten out of this long-term 3.5 year relationship. It had been a long distance relationship, so I wasn't like well versed in normal dating really. Um, so I'm not doing well emotionally. I'm not in a great place. I match with this guy who is like insanely attractive, like 6'4", big blue eyes, beautiful smile. I'm like, okay, cool. We start talking, we get along really well. We've talked for like 2 weeks, and he works in Springfield, I guess. So he's like in and out of town. So he comes in, we meet, and we spend 7 days together, like
Wow.
calling into work and just like, which is obviously like super irrational and
Yeah.
not healthy and a giant red flag.
Yes.
Um,
But
so,
no, it's love.
right, obviously, like because we just magically met and we're soulmates, and I
Yeah.
was mentally not there.
Right.
So I like, get to know this guy, and it's crazy how quickly we're really getting to know each other. Tells me his name is Alex Meyer, and that he's never been married, he's never even been engaged, he doesn't have kids, but he really wants them someday. And it's just like he's such a good guy. I end up introducing him to some of my friends. He meets my grandmother. Like it was fucking nuts. I was outside of my mind. I was not with reality.
Right.
So then he has to leave to go to work in Springfield, and I literally never hear from him again. Like gone, totally ghosted, like the hardest ghost I have ever experienced. And I can't find anything about him anywhere. Like I'm running all kinds of searches on his name, and I can't come up with anything. The phone number he's given me that I've been talking to him on before was a Google phone number. So like there's no way to trace him. So I get a little bit crazy detective. And I remember that he has this horrible tattoo of his Halo gamer tag that I was, again, red flag. I don't know what was wrong
Like
with me.
30s us is like, sis, what? But 20s us is like, no, he's got interests.
He was a semi-professional Halo player. So, obviously I don't know. But so I start looking at that tag, and I come across other types of accounts where he's used that same tag. And one of them is this like picture app where you can edit your photos and stuff. So there are these photos of him with a woman, and they are obviously very recent photos because like he looks exactly the same, no hair change or anything. So I'm in this group text with some of my girlfriends from high school, and I start sending them pictures. And one of the pictures is a group photo with 3 couples in it. And my girlfriend looks at the photo and says, I know the girl on the far left. Goes to that girl's Facebook profile, goes through all of her friends, finds the girl who looks like the woman next to Alex Meyer, and finds out her husband's name is not Alex Meyer, but it is the same man. We'll call.
Was it even close to his?
No, like that, not at all. Completely
Wow.
different. So I find him on Facebook, and I just add him, like passive aggressively. I'm just like, hey, he accepts the friend request, and we like still don't interact. He's just like, okay, yeah, sure. Like she knows, no big deal, right? Super weird. Then I get a message from this woman, and she's like, how do you know so-and-so? And I said, well, I actually don't. I know Alex Meyer. I am just finding out that this is who he is. And she was like, well, this is my husband. We just had a baby 3 months ago. And I was like, cool. Well, that explains why he ghosted after a week. And she was like, I thought he was out of town working that week. Uh, so then she goes on to tell me that she hasn't seen him in like 2 months. He said he was going to Colorado for work and just never came back. That's really heartbreaking. I'm sad for her. You know, I am really sorry. I didn't mean to be the other woman or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she tells me she's trying to serve him with divorce papers, but she can't locate him.
Right.
Like, wow, that's really crazy. So a few months pass and he adds me on Snapchat. And because I'm crazy, I accept it. I'm just
I
like,
would have
so
just out of
curious.
curiosity.
Yeah,
Right.
this is so wild. Like, this is a Lifetime movie. And so obviously I have to accept it.
I would have been like, there's no way he's got that much audacity. There's just no way.
It's never ending with this person. I swear to God. So he's like, hey, how have you been? And I was like, you're fucking psycho. Like, you are an absolute sociopath. And he was like, actually, yeah, I am. He's like, I'm really fucked in the head. And I'm seeing a therapist and I'm in Colorado. And I've got this like serious girlfriend out here. And it was all really weird. And so I was like, well, you have a wife. And that's all really fucked up and stuff. And goes on to tell me that not only do they have a new child, but they had another child together who passed away. So like, such a traumatic, like, and that story also is very sketchy. And like, I don't want to go into too much detail and get myself sued, but like, his child passed away while he was alone with the child. And now that I know that he's a psychopath, I'm like, anything's possible. So it is just fucking nuts. This whole story is just nuts.
And did she ever say like why she reached out to you or like what tipped her off?
I think she was looking at his new Facebook friends, like every day checking his Facebook friends.
Yeah, because he's clearly on there adding people active,
right? But she hasn't heard from him.
Right.
So then I just like let things be for a minute. I don't like delete him from Snapchat or Facebook. Just let things be. And Snapchat calls me one night, super late. So obviously I answer, like, something's going on. Tells me that he's going to be back in Arkansas. He's going to visit his mother, and tells me what days and like wants to meet up. So I'm like, yeah, for sure. And I like message his wife and I'm like, hey, he's going to be in Arkansas if you want to serve him with these divorce papers. Because in my mind, like, she needs to get her and her child like legally as separated from him.
Yes, like GTFO.
Right. So I'm like, I'll help you. And he like comes into town, I guess, and they rekindle things temporarily.
What?
Temporarily. And I don't know why she lets me know this, unless it's to just like tell me to back off because they're back together. I don't know, like, just
what?
Yes.
Where, but she's in Colorado, right? Or where's she at?
No. She's here in Arkansas. He had a girlfriend in Colorado.
Got it.
He also had a girlfriend in Springfield.
I guess I didn't realize he was actually from Arkansas.
Yeah. So he told me, he was like, I live with my brother in Rogers, and like told me what street they live off of. And when I'm talking to his wife later, she was like, well, we live in a house on that street. He and his brother haven't talked in like 5 years.
And they rekindle things?
I think it was very temporary because I'm still Facebook friends with him. I'm still Facebook friends with him. And they have like not ever been together since then. So I guess that was like a very temporary.
Or do you think he just has like a whole nother Facebook? Like, do you think he just has all these?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he has several. He is like a stone cold narcissist. So being Facebook friends with him, I can see his stories and everything. And he's constantly posting all of these photos of him like shirtless and in these like fake thick rimmed glasses that he doesn't actually need. Like this man could have a movie about him. Like it is so wild. And I mean, I've never unfriended him because it's just like
you can, like, you want to watch.
yeah, like if something happens, I want to know, like, and if he's ever in the news, like I knew him. So
yeah, and you want to like go on his Facebook and yeah. No, I have several classmates like that where I'm like, I'm staying on here so that when the news story comes out, I can creep on your socials.
Absolutely.
Wow. So they
they're
handle
done.
Things, and that's it. That's
yeah, I guess that's it.
Has he ever like reached out to you again or tried to?
Yeah, he did. Like a year after that, I guess.
And did you forward it to her? Or did you just leave it?
I did not forward it to her at all. And
after the rekindling thing, I'd be like, "Oh, sis, we're not on the same team anymore. Exactly. Never mind."
I was like, "Oh, you are also insane."
You okay. No one, like you both. Okay, you deserve each other. Is what's happening.
I've actually like been in that situation a couple of times, like where I'm like, "Oh, okay, I feel bad for her. Like I'm gonna stop seeing him," and like then they get back together, and I'm like, "You're fucking crazy." Like the things that you me like are the reason that I got away from him, and now you think it's a good idea to be with him.
Yes it's wild to me, people who either A, get with their friends' abusive exes even though they've heard all the stories,
right.
Like all the
or firsthand.
Yeah, or B, the people who cheat with people and think that person's not going to cheat on them, that they're special in some way. Those are the two that I'm just like, sis, what?
Okay, so there are these two from my graduating class who I actually really love individually, but from high school on, they cheated on their partners with each other in like every relationship. So then finally they decide they're going to be together. They get engaged really quickly. They get married. They buy a house. And then what do you know? One of them is cheating. Like, obviously, like what?
That almost should have just been like built into the agreement.
Right, right. Like you should expect it.
It's like you know who you married.
Yeah,
exactly. That's just wild to me. That's wild.
Well, but yeah, being interested in psychology, I'm fascinated with dating. Like and the way that people interact and the way that people choose to interact. And now that I'm getting into learning more about autism, like seeing how we all fall on the autism spectrum and how awkward and uncomfortable some of us are with certain types of communication. And so it got to this point where I was just dating to like meet new people and see different types of crazy. And I was just so bored.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed, the older I get is very much stuff like that. Like, for example, I was just diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 29. And I started taking Adderall, and just the things that about your life that you did not even realize were connected with ADHD at all, like weird habits you have or things like and as an adult, the more you learn about things like psychology and behavior and things like that, you almost start to empathize a lot more. I look back on people who I'm like, no, they were an asshole in high school, and I'm like, no, they had this or they had that or they were like that was a side effect of this medication or that. I almost feel like it makes me more empathetic. Now, I still would not let them house sit for me. You know, I'm not going to date these people or give me like they're not going to watch my dog.
For them, they're more humanized.
Right. Yeah. It makes things make so much more sense as people like grow up and they start to take care of themselves and they change. You're like, oh, they weren't just an asshole. They were, there was like a legitimate thing there.
Or crazy. Like I had this girl in my econ class, and she was really open about having bipolar. And I was like, oh my God, she's crazy. Like she's so crazy. And then I get older and I'm diagnosed with like anxiety and depression and, you know, like all of these things that stack up. And I'm like, wow, she wasn't super crazy. We all have different levels of trauma.
Yes.
Change the physiological makeup of our brain.
Yes.
Like, it's not like about being a weird person. Like she's weird, so she's bipolar. Like she got bipolar because she's a weirdo. Like it's like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild. Like I remember just, oh my God, I remember in high school, I was just so loud and I was that like crazy kid. And
Same.
I can't think about what people probably remember about me that I don't remember just because I know it's bad. Like I just know
Now,
it's
let me
horrible.
tell you what we all thought of you and Chip. You guys, oh my God, the Davises were going to win everything. Like it didn't matter what we were doing, what event it was, y'all were just going to mop the floor with everyone. So there was no point in even fucking trying. And I know that like everyone from every other school felt that way too, because it would be like before you were old enough to be on the scene, and it was just like Chip Davis, Chip Davis, and everybody liked him, but nobody
Yes,
wanted him competing with them.
yes,
And then
yes.
all of a sudden, you're old enough to come in and start competing in forensics and debate in the high school level. And everybody's like, well, shit, there's another
Yeah, there's another one. I remember there was one event, my first tournament out of junior high, where he got first and I got second in high
one.
die. And I heard people go, wait, there's another one? Like I heard the audible. Yeah, and I think he and Justin Murtis did duet
Yes.
together a lot. So then I and Justin Murtis started doing duet. And when people saw Davis Murtis, they were like, no, he graduated.
Wait,
Like, no,
another
what's going on?
one?
That's funny. But I just remember on the bus and stuff being like so loud and like having all this
Same.
energy and just so
Yeah.
like this crazy, crazy, crazy kid. And I just now as like a medicated adult, I'm like, and like once I did shrooms and like smoked enough weed to just like chill the fuck out, I now look back and I'm like, I'm so sorry. If you knew
Oh
me in
my
high
God.
school.
Same. Like I was unmedicated,
Yep.
undiagnosed. And my problem was I was on Adderall. I was misdiagnosed with ADHD instead of like
Wow.
debilitating anxiety that keeps me from focusing. So they were like, she's anxious and can't focus. Let's put her on speed.
Yeah.
So then I was just like super obnoxious. I had so
Yeah.
much energy and I was really irritable. And so I was loud and bossy. And like I look back on it and I'm like, man, if I had just started smoking weed earlier in life, I would have
Yes.
had more friends.
Yep.
Like I would have wasted a lot less time worrying and being anxious. I would have realized that everyone's so busy being focused on what they look like and what they're doing. No one cared what I looked like. I should have just
Nobody
smoked
cared.
weed. Like
Yep.
I
Yep.
should have
Yeah.
just
Have you ever done shrooms?
yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't it like change your entire life? Like your whole brain?
So I actually tried LSD before I tried shrooms. And
Whoa.
yeah.
Usually it's like a baby step into
Yeah.
shrooms and then
Yeah, you think so. Um, so with shrooms, like it was just so mellow in comparison that I was able to like really relax and just be goofy. And that's where like more epiphanies are able to happen, I think. And
yes.
unless you're really, really in tune with yourself and with LSD and what it takes, I don't think you're gonna have that same kind of in control experience. Um, but yeah, oh my God, I feel like that's changed me so much. You
What would
know,
you say is the most or like the biggest impact or I guess the most you've changed in that way? Like what are the biggest differences about you now versus before?
oh, so the level of self-acceptance that comes from the type of yoga teacher training that I did is just indescribable. So I grew up just so insecure and not even really aware of how insecure I was, just very uncomfortable all of the time. Um, and that high anxiety, like knot in your stomach, just was my norm. And so getting into yoga and finding this like level of acceptance for what I looked like, for the emotions that I carried around. I grew up just thinking I was too emotional. I felt too much. I was too sensitive. And finding this space where like that's accepted and there's room for it and it's encouraged. And that's how we release so that then we can move forward. And I stopped like suppressing everything. I was like, okay, I can deal with these things. I can talk to my mom about things that happened in my childhood that I am not cool with. And she and I are so close that it was really nice for me to be able to learn how to communicate like that. Like I was not expecting to get all of that from yoga teacher training. So that I think changed the most for me, but also just like getting out of the Bentonville bubble. When I graduated, when I graduated high school, I was going to graduate college and then marry my high school boyfriend, of course. And then we were going to have 5 children, and I would be done having kids by the time I was 30, so that my body could snap back and,
Yes.
I could live my life
And you could be a hot mom.
right. And never smoke weed and always love Jesus. And so cut to now. I was literally too stoned to start this podcast. I live with my boyfriend out of wedlock, and we have 2 dogs together, and we don't plan on having children. And I have 0 degrees so far. And I teach yoga and sell wedding dresses. And I'm just like so much happier.
I was going to say, don't you feel like so happy?
Oh my God. Like, this is really the first time in my life. Like, I was just talking to somebody recently about why I don't want kids. And I was like, I finally really like my life. Like, I love where I'm at right now. I just don't want to disrupt that. I love babies. I love kids. I love being an auntie to my friends' kids. And I love for them to go away.
And I love when they go back home.
Oh my God, yes.
Do you have any like memories from high school that you look back on and you're just like, either how did I survive that, or why would I ever do that, or that's just maybe like a huge juxtaposition into who you are now?
Oh my God. So my freshman year, I was still at the junior high, and that's when I got into like Abercrombie, and everything had to match what everyone else's appearance was, and I really needed to fit in. And sophomore year, I kind of got a little bit away from that, and started to like focus on school and building new friendships. And then my junior year hit, and I decided I was super hardcore. And so I cut all my hair and dyed it black and like had blue bangs, and I was just real angsty and would like
But it definitely wasn't a phase. It was not a phase.
No, it was not a phase. It was
just the real me.
I remember wanting my fingernails to be grungy. Like, I was like, I don't want my black nail polish to look too manicured. Like, I need for it to look
the
dirty.
Chips in there.
Yeah, I was a mess. So this girl that I had been best friends with for a long time, I don't really know what happened, but she took that as an opportunity to tell everyone that I was a devil worshiper, which in Bentonville is a very big deal.
That's like a literal witch hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. And that I made fun of her for being religious, and that I was really mean, and I said all these things that I definitely didn't say. And I basically lost my entire girl group of friends.
Wow.
So it was down to like me and my one angsty friend who was also kind of hardcore. So this is where I start partying, because, she's hanging out with older dudes and awful metal bands, and we're going to dirty house parties. And so that was really wild. And then my senior year, the same girl was like, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, this was happening. And I guess I was in survival mode, because I was like, absolutely, sure, we can be best friends again. And she was in forensics and debate also. And then she did the same thing to another girl who was also in forensics and debate our senior year. And just like spread lies and rumors about her until she had no friends, and then blacklisted her in sorority recruitment at the U of A, like literally went house to house to people, like to Bentonville alumni.
Wow.
And was like, don't let her in, like this and that.
Did she ever say why, or did she just always need to have somebody to pick on?
Yeah, I think she was just messed up.
Yeah.
And looking at it now, I think she's a therapist. And so at first I was like, the irony, but I'm hoping what that means is that she really like had to heal herself. And that's how most of us get into the psych field, is that we're receiving treatment, and we realize like, oh wow, I can relate so much to these people who need help. This is the field I should be in. So I'm really hoping that that's the case for her. She seems super cool now. We graduated like 13 years ago. Yeah. So I really hope that she's just like really awesome now. But that was wild. Like my social life going through high school was super traumatic, and it's just because girls are so confused and so unhappy with themselves, and nobody knows how to communicate those feelings, and there's not a space for it really. And so then we're just fucking mean.
Yeah. And then when you do try to communicate it, it's puberty hormones,
Yeah, you're
puberty
so
hormones.
dramatic, you're so sensitive, like why does everything hurt your feelings?
Right.
Like, because I'm a human being, and instead of being passive aggressive or aggressive, I would like to just share my feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. We're human beings. And at that age, everybody wants us to be an adult when it's convenient, and they want us to be a child when it's convenient. So when you do something bad, it's you're 18 years old. You should know what's going on. And then when you actually want to do something for yourself, it's you are 18 years old. You have no idea what you're doing.
Absolutely. Like from parents to teachers to, everyone. Yeah, that's a rough time. It just, and college, like my early college was kind of rough too. Like just trying to find yourself is so hard. And it goes to show like we all do experience trauma in such a relative way. And so like we're all dealing with that. We all have shit that we're trying to figure out. And I think a little bit of yoga and weed would probably benefit everybody.
Yeah. Is there anybody from back then that you're really surprised at how maybe close you've grown to, or anything like that maybe you weren't friends back then, but now you are now?
Yes. Michael Murphy, I know you dated his brother actually.
Yeah.
That's such a great family. I love them so much.
I love them. They're great.
Oh my God.
Like nothing but good
Michael
things to say about them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Michael and I met in like kindergarten. So we were both Elm Tree kids, and then they moved away. His dad was in the military before he worked for Walmart. And so they moved to like Germany or something. And then he comes back, and we go through junior high together and stuff and kind of know each other. And in high school, we're in debate together, and we kind of hate each other.
And he was very serious back then, I feel like.
He was a dick. He was the worst. Like, let's just call it what it is. He was mean. And then he starts dating my best friend, Emily Wood. And they become debate partners.
I forgot that happened.
Yes. And so then Michael and I get really close. And then it turns into this thing where my best friends are dating each other. So I'm just the third wheel, and it's really fun. And then they broke up, and luckily they broke up in college. So I was able to like still be friends with both of them and it not be weird. Michael and I just, from that point on, like that, he was my safe place. He has been there for every like high and low in my life. And he and his mom both are just like, come here, like, come be here, feel what you're feeling, be exactly who you are. And so now he lives in Hawaii and just got married. And my boyfriend and I are planning a trip to go out and visit them and their new baby that's coming.
Yeah.
It's really important to me that I get to hold that baby within his first year of life. It's my first, like, it's the closest thing to an actual nephew that I'm going to have probably. So I'm super stoked about that. But yeah, that is shocking for me that Michael and I went from kind of actually hating each other to like this weird friendship to being like my person. Like, I have never been so spiritually connected to someone, and it's always been platonic and so beautiful and familial, and it's just like really the biggest blessing of a relationship that I could ever have.
Yeah, and he went through he's probably number one on my list for the biggest transformation I've seen, because he went from like he would wear suits to school, and now he's like a literal hippie.
Oh, the hippiest. So he went from being like pretty conservative politically and rude and judgmental. I mean, I'm just gonna call it what it is.
Right.
I had all of my flaws back then too.
Of course, I was rude and judgmental too. Like,
yeah, I'm perfect now. But so he went to college and joined a fraternity, and that kind of loosened him up a little bit. He's still in honors college though. And then he goes on to work for Amazon, I think, and makes big money and is really successful. And all of this time he's experimenting with like the spiritual side of life now and dabbling, and he decides he's going to quit his job and travel the world. So he goes to Thailand and has this really magical experience that I think changed a lot for him. And he kept traveling and came back and decided to become a massage therapist and a laughter yoga instructor. His hair is like down to his butt now, and I think he probably washes it a couple times a year. So it's just like the most different that anybody could possibly be, and he's just so happy.
Yeah. I think what's happening is our generation is finally breaking the mold. Every generation thinks they break the mold, but then they slowly slide back into the mold because it's just easier to exist in the mold. But I think what we're finding out is we are the first generation to really embrace mental health, to really embrace talking about things like seeing a therapist, seeing a counselor, how much money do you make? How much should you be making? Like what, and I think we're the first ones to really just open those conversations. And we're the first people to really just be like, dude, be who you are.
Yes.
Be what you are, be with whoever you want. Who cares? Like, who cares if you're living together and you're not married? Who cares if you're doing psychedelics in the privacy of your own home? Who cares? Like we just, I think we've switched our priorities a lot. And we're the first generation to really just let people live their best lives and mind our own business.
Yeah. Yes.
And the reason other generations are struggling, I think, is because one, they would have loved to grow up that way. They would have loved to get that experience. And we have one side of the older generations that are like, oh my God, yes, finally, let's do this. And the other side of the older generations are like, no, put it back in the box. There's like the two, we've got these old people who absolutely support us. And then we've got the old people who like, no, go away. I don't want to think about my inner feelings that I never addressed. Like my
I have done, like the racist shit that I've said. Like, I have one grandmother who is far more liberal than I am even. She is constantly volunteering and helping people and accepts everyone. And I think that that's part of who she was always. But after my grandfather passed away, she just like really, really like let go of those kind of like older thought processes. And you can see that it was really my grandfather's like way of upbringing that was kind of holding her back there. Mm-hmm. And then I've got my dad's side of the family that are pretty redneck, and I still hear racist shit. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, it's 2021.
Right. And you can't even say I'm from a different time anymore because you're from this time. Like you are here in this time.
Yeah, exactly. You are supposed to be functioning in society right now. So there's just really no excuse that is acceptable to me. Mm-hmm. Regardless of how you grew up, like shit's changed. And you don't think that way anymore.
Yeah. And it's interesting. One of my favorite things is millennials are called both the most selfish generation, because we like take too many selfies, I guess, but we're also the one generation that's like, leave people alone. like leave people alone. That's all we want is just leave people alone. Stop passing laws to keep people from doing things that's none of your business. Why does it matter?
You would think that I'm very anti-police. And I'm not. I'm anti-bad police, and I'm anti-government telling me what to do with my body. I'm against redlining and things that have affected, the area that I live in. But I like police. I appreciate laws that protect people. I just don't fucking understand why we can't smoke weed, why we can't eat mushrooms, but we can drink as much alcohol as we want.
Yeah. Yep.
That's wild to me.
It's wild. And to me, it's like, there are certain things that I don't like. For example, I don't like eating raw jalapenos. Never. But I've never been like, I hate raw jalapenos so much that if I see you eat a raw jalapeno, I'm going to go to the government and I'm going to pass a law that says nobody can have raw jalapenos. Right? Like I've never had that urge. I've never been like, I don't like to kiss other women. I like to kiss boys. And if I see you kiss another woman, I swear to God, I'm going to go to the government and have them make it illegal. Because like,
what? Yeah. And I just don't. So with the abortions, I know that a lot of people feel like what they're doing is saving innocent babies. And so they get really passionate about it. But one of the things that we're all talking about right now is that you can't disagree with science. You can just be wrong. Like you
yes.
either accept science or you're incorrect.
Right.
And a fetus is not a living human being. And
Right.
we can, refer back to the Bible that was written by humans and has been changed a million times to try to take away rights for women. We can do that. But like, it's just absolute bullshit.
Right. Right.
I have this magic book and it says that you're not supposed to do that. And I know that you might not believe in my magic book, but because I do, I'm going to go ahead and pass laws for the entire country.
In the country that in their original constitution says there should be a separation
right.
of church and, you know what I mean? I remember I was talking to somebody who, I think he was an EMT or he worked as like an emergency responder. And we were arguing about abortion. And I asked him, I was like, so when you respond to a scene, when is a person considered not living? And he's like, when you can't detect a heartbeat. And I was like, I was like, so we both agree that when you can't detect a heartbeat, it is not alive. And he's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. And I was like, no, you said it. I caught you. You said it. Right.
Well, and like, no one is advocating for abortions at 6 months. Like we're not telling you to murder children.
Right.
Like, Jesus.
And nobody I know who has ever had an abortion likes the fact that they had an abortion.
Oh my God.
They had to do it for whatever their circumstances were.
It's heartbreaking. Like it's physically traumatic and you literally don't come back from it a lot of the time. Like it makes it to where you can't have children. Right. Not all of the time by any means, but
that does happen.
It's physically traumatic. It's emotionally traumatic. I just can't imagine anybody thinking that women would choose that as a form of birth control.
Right.
Like, I'm just not going to use protection because I can have an abortion and it's not a big deal. Nobody fucking does that.
Nobody. Right. And that's what I try to get across to people is I'm like, I don't know a single person who has ever said, don't use a condom, I'll just get an abortion.
I have a who is married and they use 2 forms of birth control because they did not want a child and she is pregnant. Like shit happens.
Yeah.
Like, and I know people who have gotten pregnant because they were sleeping with someone that they didn't want to raise a child with.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
We don't always only sleep with people that we want to reproduce with.
Right. Oh, well, and also people can say all they want, like, well, then that's why you should take response. No, there have been many times where I was in relationships that had me like emotionally and mentally manipulated to the point where for whatever reason, I thought that person was the only person I could be with, but I still knew I would never have a kid with that person.
Children don't ask to be brought into the world.
No.
There is no like sign up for them where they like voluntarily come in and, choose that family. And so when we decide to bring a child in, that decision isn't when we're having sex. That decision comes when we know that there's a possibility of pregnancy because fertilization has happened.
Right.
And nobody takes that lightly. And so I just feel like we should be doing more educating about, emotional attachments and dating choices that we make and why we would be sleeping with someone that we don't trust enough to be with or have a child with.
Right.
And just take out a lot of the judgment. The more taboo and judgmental we are and make things, the harder it is for people to actually get help to prevent getting there in the first place.
Right. And a lot of people, another thing that I've noticed is a lot of the exact same people who say, you know, it's your responsibility. Why are you sleeping with people you don't see yourself having a child with? Why are you sleeping with people at all? Are the exact same people that are come on,
Why are you being so
come
sensitive?
on. Yeah, come on. I bought
The people-
dinner. Yeah.
Oh my
Like
God.
we've gone out how many times? Come on, how long is this going to last? I had a guy once sit me down on a park bench and tell me that he decided that it was okay with him that we weren't going to have sex after like 5 dates. He
I've
decided that
decided
he was
that
okay with it.
it's okay with me if you have control over your own body and what happens to your body. I've decided that that's what.
Yep. Like, well, my question should have been at the time, what's the alternative to that?
Right.
Like, what are you saying, cop,
Do you
by the
think
way?
you have more options?
Yeah, like, I hope the alternative is that you don't see me anymore,
Right,
not what I think you're
right.
implying. Yeah.
Like, why the entitlement and the audacity? And I love men. I do. I love men a lot. I love dating
Yeah.
men. I love being friends with men.
Mhm.
But they blow my mind. Okay, I came home last night. There was a tornado watch. So I'm like racing through the rain and I'm terrified and it's like pretty scary out there. I get home and my partner and our dogs are in the bedroom closet. I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad everybody's safe. And then I see that our bedding is on the floor, on the closet floor, with our pillows down on the bottom, the dog bed on top of our pillows, and then our comforter on top of the dog bed. And I just immediately was like, what's happening in your brain? Like, why is my silk pillowcase on the dirty floor under the dog bed? Like, why? And he was like, well, I was just trying not to die. And I was like, you don't need the pillows to not die.
My pillow. That's my pillow. Yeah.
So it's just like little things that I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand.
So yesterday, anytime that I'm at my boyfriend's house, which is where I'm at right now, I don't have Wi-Fi. So in order to spend time here, I have to like plan to do my Wi-Fi things at home. You know, so yesterday I was not feeling good. And I was like, I don't have the energy to like go home to get on my Wi-Fi, but I need Wi-Fi. And he goes, why don't you, and this has been going on for months, right? For months, he's been like, I'm going to get Wi-Fi, right? And like, he hasn't gotten Wi-Fi for whatever reason. So then he goes, why don't you do the Xfinity hotspot thing? And I was like, what Xfinity hotspot thing? And he goes, oh, Xfinity has all these local hotspots you can use, and you just pay like $5 for a whole day of Wi-Fi. And I was like,
why are you just telling me?
I'm like, and you're telling me this 4 months into my plight? What do you, and he's like, yeah, I used to do it all the time. He's like, I totally forgot about it. But then he goes, but then he gets better. Cause I was like, are you like, first of all, I'm having this like mental breakdown because I've been literally like going back and forth just because of the Wi-Fi. And I'm like, because he uses his cell phone hotspot, but when he's not here, I can't use his cell phone hotspot. And so I was like, well, here's the thing. I said, I'm already paying for Xfinity at my house. I don't want to pay for Xfinity twice. And he goes, you're an Xfinity customer. You get to do it for free. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah, if you're an Xfinity customer, you just sign into the hotspot with your Xfinity information and it worked.
Oh
and
my God.
He couldn't figure out why I was still mad, even though the Wi-Fi was working flawlessly. He couldn't figure out. If I had not been so happy about the Wi-Fi, I would have pushed this man off the balcony. I would have pushed him off. I love him with every fiber of my being, and I would have pushed him off the balcony.
Yep. Yeah. Like, I just don't understand sometimes.
I don't.
And that comes from me too. Also, like, I've always lived by myself. I've never lived with a man, especially a man that I love very much. So like, I don't want to hurt his feelings, but also like, I want him to put the toilet seat down, and I will nag and I will bitch and I will be that person because I don't want my dog drinking out of the toilet.
Like, I want internet that works, and I don't want the dog drinking out of the toilet. Like, that is not much.
I know I'm asking for a lot here.
Yes. Oh God. Well, Kaylin, this has been so much fun. I really
Yes.
enjoyed catching up with you. I haven't heard somebody call my brother Chip in literally 15 years. So that was like a blast from the past.
I had to think
I-
about it the other day. I was like, he hasn't always been Spencer. I mean, he's always been Spencer, but
Right.
he hasn't always gone by that. And I was like, oh, duh, Chip Davis.
Yes,
But it
Chip.
was never
And-
Chip. It was
Yes.
Chip Davis.
And every once in a while, somebody from high school would visit Chicago and they would see him and he'd be like, Chip. And he would have like a, he hadn't been called that in so long. Yeah.
It's great to see him online too. And, you know, he and his partner are so happy and
Yes.
he's like doing the damn thing. And
Yeah.
like,
He
that's
literally
amazing.
just spent like 3 days in California because somebody paid him to come out and teach like theater writing. It was,
Wow.
I don't know. He hasn't had a day job in years because he's doing so well writing theater and
Well,
directing plays.
you know, Miss Thompson is probably beyond proud. So
I hope so. Because we are, that's for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And he will never brag about himself. So I'm just like, I'll brag about him. Here's the thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like
somebody
he
said
would
to-
never say any of that, but I'm like, guess what? That's why I'm always like sharing his posts on Facebook. But
Yeah, I think absolutely no one is surprised that you're both like, you know, doing theater and comedy and just what absolutely fits you both. I think that's wonderful.
thank you. And I'm so glad to see that you've like developed into this best version of yourself and you're happy and you're fulfilled and you're doing whatever you want.
Yeah, it's really great. You know, it's a weird time, but things are good.
Yeah. And I think if we all, like you said, I think the big lesson here is if you just smoke a little weed and chill out and just be yourself, everything will be all right.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Talk to you later.
Bye.